So today I wanted to talk about the Panasonic GH4, basically if it is a viable option here for 2022, with it being a camera that was originally released here in 2013. So with this camera, it was pretty future-proofed. It had 4K 30 frames per second. It had, of course, a 16 megapixel, which is always pretty good for different kinds of photos. But it also had that 96 frames per second slow motion in 1080p. So with this particular setup and having 100 megabits per second, having quite a bit of data right there for your videos, it really helped it be ahead of the pack when it was originally released here. But there are some things that have made it become a bit outdated here amongst the many different cameras and the new features that different cameras have been able to supply us with. So as far as the main things for this camera are the slow motion, the 1080p 96 frames per second, which looked really good and really nice in creating a nice cinematic look, something that I like to use multiple different times there. But then also that 4K footage also helped with clean footage, even when using it in tandem with this Sony a7 III that's recording here at the moment. As far as the camera's low light, the Panasonic GH4's low light, it was not the best low light. There was a video I did called Botanical, and that video was struggling in low light. So then also making sure that you are taking into account the size of the sensor. It does take in less light, and then also you may have less of that bokeh that you may want just due to the sensor being smaller and it being more zoomed in, being cropped, causing you to have less bokeh there around the unfocused areas of that image. But as far as the camera is concerned, it is a pretty good overall package, especially with the maybe a $300 to $400 per auction there for eBay. So that may be something that you may want to look into. One thing to make sure that you are looking out for is the fact that the autofocus is not the best for video, especially there. For photos, it is good, but for video, it will fall out of focus and then it will get back into focus. So then when trying to do something cinematic, it's not the best conditions or best output for something that is cinematic there. Also making sure that you do have Vlog, which is a software update or download there to have a really flat video footage, so that basically it's really washed out so that you can bring back your own sharpening, your own contrast, your own colors, so that you can make something of your own and make those colors the way you really want them. So making sure that you just take those things into account. Otherwise, this camera is a pretty good camera, especially for someone who is trying to get back into photography or trying to get into photography for the first time and wanting to try out something for not a high cost there, like how something like the Sony A1 costs $6,500. So just make sure that you are just looking into those different types of cameras, and this one may be one that you may want to look at for a low cost, such as maybe $300 to $400 on eBay with options there. With this camera, I am planning on converting it to IR, so that it's a IR conversion there, so that I can play around with that and just kind of experiment with creating photos and maybe video with IR without a high cost of the modifications or lowering the value of my Sony a7 III here, so that I can use something of a lower cost to really play around with. So I hope you liked the video, and like, subscribe, and continue to see the world through my lens.